All right. So recording is started. Great.
Yes.
So, Ashwarya, in the last day, we had a good discussion on
Yes.
like
I'm,
multifarious topics, right? It was a mixed topic
I
on
make
like.
notes and to be honest, really, Sudipto, after listening the class and I'm making notes, I got, I mean, why was I not able to understand that in the first session? I couldn't able to figure it out, but
Mhm.
I got more clarity after listening to the class and preparing the notes. Thanks for that.
Welcome. Thank you so much for saying that. Okay. So I know that because I know I have gone through all the topics and you also understood while the process of my teaching, you have understood.
Yes.
But then, since the length of the class went big and it was quite a more intensive class, it got a little bit of confusion in the end. So, and
Yes.
once somebody starts confusing or something, then it becomes difficult and it becomes very cumbersome. So that's the
Yes.
reason that you are actually kind of drained away in the end part of the session. But I told you that you have really understood. If you revisit that lecture, you will understand. And this is what you are telling today. Wonderful. It's good that you have got some insight. Now
Yes.
today,
If
what
you
I want
ask me any question, Sudipto, that would be great.
on that, yes, I
Oh,
would.
that yes, on that
I
aspect.
Oh, okay. I'd like to. Can you please open up that project?
Sure.
All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can just recover that in case you want. I think that is going to be opening something else, some other project.
Yeah, inventory.
Inventory,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you can. Once it opens, you can. No, no. First, let it be opening. You can then open up our
We did
project.
we did that topic on casting.
Yes, you can close the Visual Studio now, and you can open up our casting application,
I
casting
don't
video. Yeah. It is
CHO
good
cast.
that you have to be having some Q&A, question and answer on that topic. That will be
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Or we can go into another topic too. That I love to do it. But first, yeah, it should be good to be asking some question. So we can open up that casting
And you
file.
wanted me to remind that we need to go through an topic called parameters where get set. Yeah.
I am actually wanting to get there only today. That's what is in
Okay.
mind. So that's why I said properties. Properties means using get and set. Now, properties are very like people think it is so simple. Properties get set over, right? We have get sets, and it is so easy. But you have to be getting inside, deep inside, what properties are actually. So in today's class, I really get into that. But first, let me a little bit ask some questions on the previous lesson so that I can be assured that you have followed up and you have understood. So, yep, let it start.
It's taking a while to load
It's
documents.
taking some time, yeah, loading document content because we had a Visual Studio crash. That can be
Mm-hmm.
the reason of this delay, probably.
Okay.
If you have not cancelled that inventory, that was the opening. Yeah, now it is good. Okay, great. All right. So before we do anything, just give it some moment to, save and just run it once so that everything runs and the Visual Studio is all ready for work. Taken into RAM. Everything is taken into RAM. I think I've also got you some notes pasted there, right?
Yes.
Yes, that
Yes.
was a good thing. Yes, the common casting techniques, explicit cast,
Yeah.
as cast, also known as safe cast. Then we got the dynamic cast. I haven't talked much about it, but
No,
great
no,
deal
no.
of things will be there, of
Yes.
course. And then we have got a convert class, which can do conversions, right? Conversions from various common types to common types, okay? So convert
Okay.
class is very common class. It is converts common classes to common classes and common objects types to common object types, Like you're
I
gonna
mean, the data
convert
types be same
data types. No, how the data type from one data type to another data type.
to another
That is
data.
what
Oh,
mainly casting is all about.
yes.
The data type, there are two things in two different data types, just that we need to be converting one to another, just to
Another.
make
Yeah.
our life easy, right? That's the main casting scenario. Like why we cast. The reason why we cast is this: five common casting techniques. I have already told you that why we indeed cast. The reason for casting is that once after casting from one type to another type, that type can give you better insight into the object. We can invoke some more functions, right? Like for example, if you have something like an object type, let's say, if you have an object type, you don't have much like functions into it. Say it is taking so
Yes.
much of time. That is why I really want it to run. So let's say you have an object type, and inside the object you have hidden a car type, a car, right? Now you don't have
Okay.
any lot of functionality on that particular variable. You can do something like x dot start, x dot stop, something like that, but you really don't have much functionality. But the very moment you cast it into a real car class, then you can get a plethora of functions, right? Car dot stop, car dot start. You can get a lot of functions, lot of functionality. The main reason of casting is that after the casting is done, once you are done casting, the object in which you casted, that object, that data type gives you more functionality, gives you better functionality. That is the reason for casting, right?
Oh,
So
understood.
casting
Yes.
always, one thing you should understand, casting always happens from a more general to more specific.
To both. Yes.
More general to more specific, always
More
understand.
specific.
The main thing of casting, the main reason of casting is that, you know, very simple thing, casting always happens from more general to specific, right? You just notice it everywhere. Like let's say inside this obj, you have put this. Now this is not casting. This is like the opposite of casting. You can call it like boxing. Boxing means putting. So casting is like unboxing. Casting in another term, like we have
And
just multiple terms. We call it unboxing, that is getting out. Like let's say inside a box you have your gift, right? Somebody has gifted you.
yes. Yes.
It's a box, so you want to unbox it, right? So unboxing is actually casting. So you know that inside the box you have, let's say, something, let's say uh, a phone, or maybe you like some doll, something. So you're unwrapping it and you are unboxing it just to get your gift in your hand. So that is unboxing and casting. And putting, and you are gifting someone something. Let's say you are gifting a friend some Barbie doll or something. You purchase it from the market. Now you want to put it inside a box and give it to your friend, right? So putting something into a box is known as boxing. So you can also call this process. These are basically kind of boxing, right? Boxing. Boxing means you are wrapping it up in some gift wrapper. Wrapping, I call it wrapper. Wrapping up, right? You can think about wrapping up. And this is unwrapping, okay? So you can think in these terms and things will be simple. So I think you have the basic idea. Now, can you
Yes.
please give me the reason of using safe cast over the explicit cast? That why we might use safecast. What is the necessity of using safecast? What is the
Safecast doesn't throw an error actually. I mean, it
Mhm.
doesn't throw an
Great,
exception.
excellent. It doesn't throw exception, and what does it mean? I mean, why is it really good for the developers not throwing exceptions? If it doesn't throw exception, then what benefit we will get? I mean, we can always use try catch to handle exceptions, right? You know that.
Okay.
Like let it throw
Yes.
exception, no problem. Let it throw exception. I'll wrap it up in try catch and I'll go that way, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, what is the benefit of not getting exceptions? I
Not
mean,
doing an
if you have
exception.
already done something wrong, if I do something wrong, I should be thrashed by someone that hey Shudipto, we have done something wrong. Come on, right? So that means If something is wrong, application should scold you, right? Exceptions are
Yes.
kind of getting scolded from the application. My point is that if the exceptions are not there, if nobody is scolding you for whatever wrongdoing you are doing, then is it good? Like exceptions are good. Getting scolded is also good, right? If teachers never scold student, then student won't learn ever, right? That's the thing.
Yes.
So scoldings are good actually. Scoldings are exceptions. So what do you think? Like why exceptions are? I mean, so much. I mean, why exceptions? You want to be muting my exceptions. So a cast, safe cast doesn't throw exception. It really does. You see, it still returns a null if the cast fails, right? It still returns a null. Now, returns a null is equivalent to throwing exception. We understand
Throwing.
that. But
Yes.
returning a null, that means you still have to be doing some if checks, right? Like if
Yeah.
something is null, I think I have told you that way, right? Let's say if this is so as string, and then we can check it here, like if my sorry, if my str2 str2 is it equals to null, then we can print some message that invalid. We can print some message the console dot write line invalid, right? We can write some text, just invalid casting. Else we can go with it and we can do some goodness into it. Okay, we can say okay successful and something, right? So we can write some successful. So that
Yes.
means we can still quite do we can still quite do you know that we can still quite well we can still quite process it using the null stuff, and you can say success. And we might use this data str2 for some reason, because we got it unboxed. I got it unboxed, unboxed. Unboxed means casted, right? So
Yes.
so we can use that. Now the same thing if I've used the previous approach, which is this guy, like the same thing, say the same thing. Like here we want to be trying to get a string out of this str, which isn't the case because we already have a number here. And here we had a number, we had a string, and we are trying to get an integer out of it, which is again the failure. I mean, these examples are like opposite, but that's fine, the same thing. You have stored a string, you want to get an integer, so you got to get an invalid cast exception. You got to get an invalid cast exception. But here, the opposite one, you got an integer into the object 2 or whatever, and then you want it to be casting out a string, which is not possible, right? Because, like integers aren't string and vice versa. And the strings aren't integers, right? So the same thing. But here you can't use that mechanism of really comparing it with null. What we can do is that we can fabricate a try catch around, like a try, like this, right? And then a catch, like this, exception. Well, you can also get what exception. You know, try catch looks like a better option because it can even give you what went wrong. Exceptions messages can be
Yes.
decoded. So you
Yes.
could have put the entire thing, instead of doing it like this, you could have put it just like this, and then you could have got the hello. First of all, you boxed it. Okay, well, I call it boxing. Box it, wrapped it, whatever. Box, wrapped, right? It's up to you. The words are endless. And then you unboxed it, casted it, unboxed, and wrapped, casted. Okay, that's a technical word, casted. So into this num. So that was an attempt. The attempt might be successful or might not be.
And
So
not
now
be.
you
Yeah.
try to cast it, and if the casting really succeeded, you can go ahead and say something like this, like success with
Yes.
some text, right? So success with some text here. Here's a success, and then number that you got it to be. So you got this number converted. And if it wasn't a success, then you can just write unsuccessful or failed. And on the top of that, you can also have what and why it failed. you know it by writing message, dot message. You can definitely get your reason for failure as well, right? You can get
Right.
the reason
Yes.
of failure. So it looks like it is having more more information. It
Yeah,
looks
it
like
is
it's a
more
better
detailed.
option,
Yeah.
right? It looks like just that the syntaxes are different. You don't have to be writing an if statement. You can do by try, and you can continue writing the code that you want to, like they all are in the same go, same flow. All right. And if something goes wrong here, we know that this line is the culprit. Something can go wrong here. When something goes wrong here, we can hop into our catch block, and we can say fail ex dot message,
Why
right?
don't we write an if else statement itself? Can we get these kind of X dot message even in the else statement as
No,
well?
you can't. You
Oh, okay.
can't until and unless the function itself gets you some message in the out parameter, right? If let's say some way first of all in casting you can never get it. You can never
Okay.
get it, right? Maybe if you do a function call, it gets you some error. You have set up some out parameter, you might get it. But for this kind of casting, you'll never get it. Maximum you can get a null. Null means, I'm sorry, we didn't get you there. So fail silently and step 2 will be null. So this looks like less informative, whereas this is rich in information. So this
Yes.
starts off with casting. The casting is good, you can get the success message. And if the casting isn't good, you bam this catch block providing some ex message. So that ex is basically a variable, and that variable is rich in information. So you can really extract that what went wrong by investigating the message property of ex, right? So that's the crash reason. So message is a crash reason, right? So it looks like this is a better option because you can get more granular information about your crash, right?
Yes.
My
Yes.
question is that even on this, why do developer like this? Is it just because of the simplicity that we just have an if statement doing the stuff, or something else is also there which lets this facility to be a better option than using try catch in general? So once I talked about that in some of the previous classes, if you remember, you can think try catches, good option still.
Even though it is giving the more detail, but though,
Yeah, even though it is giving you more
but
detailed
yeah,
information, you are getting a good scolding, and also you are getting a good love, because after scolding, if somebody loves you, that's also good. So that's the thing. Like you're getting a scolding, like oh something went wrong, but again the reason for that failure is also being transferred to your program, right? So what do you think? Like I mean, why we still avoid try catches? There are some reason doing that. Okay, let me tell you.
yeah.
Try catches, try catches aren't really good for any executing program. But one or two failures, that is fine. Try
Okay.
catches, yes, whenever there's an exception raising from a module, that really slows down the program. Exceptions are something that slows down your code. So exceptions take a lot of exceptions are like say that exceptions are sneezes. Like when you sneeze, think about it. Your body kinds of shakes from inside and your eyes gets closed and violently you sneeze out, right? So a
Yes.
sneezing takes so much of bodily resources. And we say blessings. Why after somebody sneezing we say blessings? Because
Because the heart stops.
heart stops for a moment. So momentarily, one bit is lost because the sneezing is such an intensive phenomena that the heart even stops for a moment, and that's why they're temporarily dead. So we say blessings, right? Continue the life. So you can think a tricat is like a sneeze by your application. So it kinds of takes more CPU time, okay, because try catch is more informative, and that's the reason. So the program has to create more information about what went wrong, why. It has to prepare more detailed information Like what's, let's say I don't really want to get such a detailed information. I know if it fails means if it has failed, that's it. I don't want to know why it has failed. I just want to be alerted that it has failed, so please don't move into it any further. And if it is success, we can go doing the thing in an initial way. So if you're not interested in the details of failure or something, using safecast is really good. It's really safe. Using try catch isn't really safe. The
Just
try
because you slow down the process, that means it takes more memory
more
space,
memory,
Sudipta?
more time, right?
Okay.
You can experiment one thing. I think I did that before too. That if you run a try catch within a loop saying just you can loop it for 100 times, you'll see some delay. Think about it. A for loop running for 100 times, having some exceptions every time into the for loop will cause a significant delay. And if you just let it run for 1000 times, forget it. It will take very good delay, maybe 3 or 4 seconds of time. That depends on the processor that you are using, right? So that means, do you think a program running for 1,000 times or 10,000 times is, or even 1 million times, is anything to a computer? Nothing. 1 million can be done in the blink of an eye. Computers are so fast these days. But if you have, provided you don't have a exception throwing module inside, if within the loop, if you have an exception, you can think your program will is almost dead. It's completely hung. And this is the reason modern developers do mistakes. So the program hangs. The hanging of program is just because of, not because of bad computer or poor resources. It's because of bad programming. So make sure that whenever you developer are creating any kind of application, avoid using try catch completely within your loops, because a loop with a try catch is something, is like, is absolutely is a graveyard of your application. Okay, so never try to use the try catches within loops, right? Completely avoid it. So always try to use some if statement which kinds of checks things and avoid things which are good. But doing a try catch within loop is absolutely bad idea, right? So just try to
Makes
know that. So have you got me?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, Sudipta.
Great, great, wonderful. So you now know what safe casting is. Okay. So could you remember like anything about the dynamic cast? I mean, what do you think a dynamic cast? I mean, why might we use that? Anything that you remember?
I don't
I know
remember that.
I have not got through much into it. See, dynamic casting is not at all a kind of usual casting. Here is where dynamic casting has happened. See, we don't have any such casting into like int and something, because I don't have to. This will happen automatically. Dynamic casting means something happening automatically. See, so dynamic casting says it's a runtime resolution. You put something into dir variable, okay, it takes it, and then later, yeah, and then later you want to be getting it and add some number to it, you can do it directly. Had this been an object type, let's say if this is an object, let's say, then we have to be doing this. This is an explicit cast. We have to be doing this. There is no doubt in it. We have to be doing this, right? So, but in dynamic cast, we say that I don't want to do either of them. So let's just create some data, put it
Mm-hmm.
into a dynamic variable, and any point of time we can, do some kinds of additions or something, and they were great. They were great. So you can just kind of, add to that or something that automatically converts, and the result can be taken into a solid concretized type, it's a concrete type. Same for this, you can see that we got this test here into this variable. However, in the runtime, we want to just get it into an integer variable. Now this is not possible. Now you will not see any kind of error in the compile time. in the runtime it will definitely fail with runtime binder exception, because this cannot be converted into integer type in the runtime. So it is all good, no exceptions. If it works good, it is very fast. But in the runtime, if you have put some wrong information, this is not going to work for sure, right? You can say type resolution happens at the runtime. Exceptions occur in the runtime if it's not valid. So use of dynamic keyword is very great, right? Okay. Don't mix dynamic with var, so vars are something else. Var means it's an implicit type. That is, I am not liking to provide its type as int. Compiler will look at it, and compiler will look at this initialization and will create an integer variable of dyn. Okay, so that is, I
Okay.
don't want to be that, I'm saying that I don't want to explicitly write its type. Let compiler look at it and figure that out, right?
Okay.
It's a compile thing. It's not at all a runtime thing. It's a compile thing. For example, you can never do this, like create a variable with dyn and then write dyn equals to 10. Never possible. You will get an error here, right? It says that this is an implicitly typed variable. That is, you want the type to be determined by the compiler, and compiler needs some data or expression for that. You haven't provided any data or variable, so there will be a rest quickly line, just line there, right? Let me get it to, okay. So that was the the var keyword. People confuse. That is why I wanted to tell you that var is like implicitly typed variable. So like we can have an implicitly typed variable, and we want to initialize it with some function call. For example, if I write var and then let's say, well, x equals to, I can write 85, or I can call a function, maybe like some function, like I call some function, some method, okay, and this method has a return type of an integer. If the return type of this method is an integer, then quite arguably, this guy will also be an integer, right? Because
Yes.
whatever is the return type of this will be the implicit type of x. That is, implicit means something which happens, or I mean automatically, like we implicitly assume this. So something that we assume it, okay. So some method which returns an integer, so that the automatic type, will be integer. So it makes out. Implicit means try to make it out, okay. Explicit is when you try to say this explicitly, right? You say something explicitly, loud and clear. And implicit here is where we are saying it openly, right? Explicit means you are trying to say it openly, that this is an integer. Mr. Computer, this is an integer. Okay, computer will say, I mean, great, I understand. This is an integer. But what about if I say that, I don't know, okay, you get it from what I give you. So if this my method, this sum method, okay, returns an integer, so will be the type of x. If this returns a double, so will be the type of x, right? So this is what you really need to understand about, I'm just commenting that this is not fitting in this particular code. Just want to say you that this is an implicitly typed variables. Okay. That's what you should really understand. Okay, so yeah, you're saying something?
Understood, Sudipta. I
You
just
understood.
say,
Great. Yeah,
yeah, we can
understood.
get
Is
started
it
with the properties.
with the properties? Okay, so that was it. I hopefully that you got, and the last one was, like pattern matching with
Pattern
each
matching.
statement. Yeah, this is where the things gets very simple. Like you want to cast something and also use it in the same time. So he's saying that, and you also want to know if it could have been casted. So this is the mix of an if statement and as casting, I believe. See, or obj is in,
In
if it is, get it into x. This is great. See, if obj is in, if it is really there's an integer into it, please get it into an x. So this is I mean something which is really good. I mean, if you really have a scenario to check for the casting before use, should definitely use this, because it can also be useful for casting out value types and also reference types. The as casting cannot do casting in the value type. You just know that, right?
Yes.
The as casting, the downside of as casting is that it fails, and it only works for reference types. But let's say if you have a requirement of casting and also checking if it has failed or not, okay, then the best bait is that you use this, because you say obj is int, right? But if you ever have written like obj as int, as in as casting, this will never take, because as casting completely disregards anything which is primitive type like integer, double, okay. And so you can't just do that. Like, let's say if you could have done that, and let's say we can then say, okay, integer x equals to this, okay, and then we can say if, okay, and then we can say if x equals to null, right? Please get the point. F is equal to null, or if x is not equal to null. The reason is you can never check x for being nullness, because they are primitive type. They cannot be null in the first place. Do you get the point? They cannot be null in the first place. So doing the as casting is completely meaningless here. You can't just do this. So this is not possible. The best bait is that, and if you want to do the normal explicit casting, that might fail. That might give you exception, right? You know that if you do explicit
Yes, yes,
casting,
yes.
give
Because
exception. So,
can
yeah,
be any type.
yeah, can be any type. So that is the reason, if you use with an if statement, if you ever feel the necessity of having a little check, why don't we use the if? Because this solves both together into one line. The obj is int, okay, get it into x, and if you don't have to. This is something great. This is awesome. This is awesome. I mean, that's up to you how you use and what you use. But if you really have to be checking your cast, if you really have to check for your progress, always do that. There are others also, thing like nullable checks and null balancing operator, which I'll discuss in some other classes. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, they are also good to know, like null balancing operator and null other operators are there which deals with nulls, which are great to see. Every developer must know. So I'll discuss that in some other class.
Okay.
Now let us step into the world of C# properties and what we really do with that. Okay, so properties isn't a big topic, but you should understand why in the first place properties are there. So let me
Okay.
get into Visual Studio, and let me create a new project and create console application and write it properties in C sharp,
Sharp.
right? In your location.net, which is good. Click next. All right, we are using 8.0. It's up to you. You can use 9 as well. Let me use 9.
Okay.
Clicking create. First of all, let me tell you, properties are a syntactic sugar to your program. Properties really don't exist. Yes, properties really don't exist. So whatever you have seen, get sets and something like that, never really exist, right? So what exists? Let us first see, right? What exists, and then one that exists, how it makes our life tough. Let us also visit that, and
Okay.
then I'll, in like 2 minutes, the property can be introduced. The properties can be understood once you first understand the existing scenario and why it might be
Why?
difficult, right? So, and then once I tell this is property, actually property is less than 2 minute class, okay? But why the properties are there, to bring that backdrop is important. So let us get into that backdrop of the situation. So the background of the situation. So let us create a class, okay? Let us have first of all a console dot read line, read key. Okay, let's create a simple class. Class employee, my favorite class, as always. No, I'm not going to use get set. Okay, forget it. I'm
Okay.
going to be using the old way. C++ language don't have properties. Java language don't have properties. Then how do they survive? Right? How do they survive? They're the one which just uses the raw language features. They don't use any syntactic features, right? Good syntactic sugars are good for the developers. It makes things very, very friendly. Okay, so Java and the C++, I can be saying loud and clear, aren't really developer friendly. But C Sharp is really, really developer friendly. Why? Because C Sharp has blended the features of C++ and also Java and
Java.
got some, painted some sugar on it, right? So you can say, as I always tell you, that C Sharp is the baby, is the kid, and born out of C++ mother and Java father. Okay, so C++ is mother, and it has she has got. I mean, C++ has got so much of like language features. It is the most toughest language of all, even in the present time. It has got a lot of features. And Java, on the other hand, is very simple. It's like a very simple father. The father is super simple. And C Sharp is something in between and got something new traits. And this is exactly what happened to C Sharp language. So let me work with those language, like how it works. Like, let me have a private int age. Okay, employees are having some age, and private, I don't know how age came. Let me get it ID. I never wanted to have age, ID, and private, yeah, string name. That's good. Okay, let me have these two, private age, name, and age. Let me have one more, private string department, right? Let me have these three only. All right. So the employee is having an ID, is having a name, and having a department, right? And they are all private. Why we made it private in the first place? Because we respect the fundamental theory of object orientabity is encapsulation, because that's the fundamental theory of object orientedness. If I have made it public, then you completely disregard object orientabity, right? If it is public, okay, int id, name, and department, in that case, if you do that, then of course you can create object. It's a kind of little revision of what you have learned real quick. So if you do that, it is, you can create employee, you can really have employee.id, yeah, to something. Now, until and unless you are doing something good, Ashwarya, okay, and then Ashwarya, okay, your name, okay, and then employee dot department, let's say it's an IT. So it's all good, but let's say I write something as nonsense like this. I mean, this is not possible, such a big name. Let me give an
Yes.
employee ID like -1. I completely ruined up, screwed up
Yes.
my object. I give something like which is never there, cooking. Like, let's say there is no such department, cooking, in the employee section, but I wanted to have that. Or better, I don't have any, just nothing here. So in this case, you destroy the object, man. The object gets destroyed. The object gets, its state gets lost. You have put injected some wrong data into the object, right? And there is nothing that can save the object from preventing it, right? So
Yes.
that's the point I really wanted to tell you, that if you really have an employee object with this, having this ID, name, and department in this way, in this particular way, then you are invariably destroying the object's sanctity, the object's beauty, right? The object's state. So that is very wrong, right? So we protect this by using object-oriented concept. This is why the object-oriented concept, the first principle of object orientivity, is like change your stuff into private, right? So this is what is so much important. How did I do that? I just hit this. I just hit them. I just click on the mouse here. I press the Alt key on the keyboard, and then while pressing the Alt key, I'm still press the Alt key and just selecting using the mouse, and that way I can now keep typing anything that will get into a long cursor. Okay, that is something great. Now essentially, if even if I don't have even if I don't have those private, it is also private by default. I don't have to be doing them by default, but I still would like to write private. That's all I do. Spelling mistake, private. All right. So I have made them to private. Now nobody can tamper with the object state, object's data so easily. So we can't do this. Now it will say that it is being inaccessible due to its protection level. So you have protected the sanctity of your object, right? So now this is not possible. So I get rid of that now. Now, how do I really get data into the object? Well, there are two ways I can still get data. Can you please quickly tell me that how can I still save my ID, name, and department into this object if this object is not allowing me to get it? Let me call it E for short. Okay. Then how can I really get a data, ID, name, and department into this employee? They are all private now, not possible, right? So quick quick answer please. This is very important question. I mean, this is very basic question. You already know that whatever I'm telling you already know. It's nothing to teach. I'm still trying to create that backdrop for you. It's a kind of a refresher, reminding, and you'll get to know that, of course. So if this is, I've turned it to private, now there is no way getting the data into it. First of all, there is no way. The shortest answer is no way, not possible. But if I really want to make some way, one way is that change it back to public. Other than changing it back to public, which is a bad idea, of course, what is the other way I can convey my data? I can transfer my data into the object space. I can really save some ID, really save some name, really save some department. Over to you. Think and tell me. Think and tell me.
Um, we can create a method for it.
Absolutely right. Why have you thought such a long time? We can really create some public method and can do that, right? We can really
Yes.
create method. Now there are two ways. Of course, the fundamental way is method way. Now method can be two ways, two types. One is the constructor method. So we can fabricate a constructor method. We can
Okay,
right
during
click
the
on it.
constructor method, we can create like this dot ID,
Absolutely.
this ID,
Absolutely. We
like
can, yeah, I have
uh,
right click on this guy and says that quick actions and refactoring. And there I will click on generate constructor. I'll click on this and the constructor gets created automatically. I don't have to be typing this, right? This is a great thing. The constructor can take ID, name, and department. Now we can do some checks before we take those value. You can always check that if this ID, incoming ID, is greater than 0. Let's do some simple checks. Then we want to get it inside. If this incoming name is not null, incoming name is not null, and also the length name's length must at
minimum.
least be greater than one character. Nobody can have a name with just one character. Not even Chinese names, right? Maybe Lo, Pu, maybe short names. They can have short names. So even Chinese names can be two characters long, right? So so minimally you have at least, 2 characters, so should be ideally be greater than 1 character. So we can check, like, if name is not equal to null and if name's length is more than 1, then we got to be getting into here, right? So,
Yes.
right, and similarly the department, you can do some checks in the department too, like you can really do check the department is among a few departments, right? So yep, we can just have a few departments, like if the department at least cannot be null in the first place and should be among a few departments, right? Should be among a few departments. You can always do that check. For now, I'm just making the department length is more than 1, but we can always do check that we have some departments. Let's say we create that for some reason, because ultimately we have to be doing that, those checks. So how do I really have some static information in the class? Because we have got, now I know that we are going off topic. You don't have to worry. I will be using that check many times, so that is why I want to get it as a static data, not as an instance data. I had already classes discussing what is instant data, static data in previous session. So for now, let me have a static, which is a private, of course, string, array of strings determining some departments, allowed departments. Okay, so this is not a private non-static. Otherwise every employee will have those departments, right? If employee will have id, name and department. This is not something that is related to the employees. This is something that is related to the whole of the employee class. So I want my employee class to be among id, uh, let's say accounts, let's say
Is that
sales.
as a static string?
Static string, yeah. I
Oh,
just, yeah, I know whenever it comes static you get little stuck. I know it, so don't worry, but I have to get things in and out, right? So it, account, sales, and then let us have like hr. Okay, that's fine, we have got 4 of them. All right, so other few things, teams. Okay, so now we have got these in our team. Now what we really want to check is that we want to check whether this department is among these departments, right? We will really want to check whether this is among these departments or not, right?
got
So we can probably write dpt dot contains. You have something like that, contains, let's see, I'm trying, I also sometimes try. So let me write this dept. Great, it works. So I don't have to be creating any custom functions. The contains is great, so we can use the contains function directly on an array and check one of its member is this member. If it is really,
we can even use for each, right? Instead of this.
we can use for each. We can, then you have to be just running a loop. That's what I told you. We can really
Oh,
do a for each here, like maybe a boolean contains. I mean, department is okay, is okay. Okay, we can write something like that. Is okay equals to false. Let's assume a false, and then let's do a for each, and then go through all of them. Var de D
departments.
in
DEPs.
DEPTS, right?
Yes.
Enter. And if for some good reason, if this D is equals to my incoming department, as in the constructor, if
Departments.
it is really so, then you know what to do. We really need to be, you know, turning our is okay to true. That, yeah, great man, it is okay now.
D, I
And
guess we have to
also
write
break.
this. So,
Tell me.
if D is equal to departments.
Equal
DEPs.
department, yeah. If
Yeah.
it is equal to means if it is matching, it has matched
Yeah.
one of a department.
I mean, we have written DEPTS. We missed S.
Where dpts here? No,
Uh,
it is dpt. Why? Because dpt is the incoming department. Just look at this, incoming, that's the department information somebody is trying to set through the constructor, right? So this is incoming dpt. So this incoming dpt will get in here, and we are looping through all the dpts. This is an array, and we are getting the singular d's into it, like d is one time it, d is next time accounts, sales and hr, And for NED, if it matches with our department, which is the requested information to be getting absorbed into the object, if that is really so,
Okay.
then we are immediately saying, oh, great. So give a thumbs up. Is OK equals to true, and then great. So such a kind of big statement can really be shortened by lambda expressions. Now here, of course, we never need
I
any
see.
lambda because we already have this contains extension method. You see, it's an extension method. Contains is an extension method created by Microsoft. So it can be available on all the arrays, all everything that is enumerable and array. See, on all enumerables, this extension method is available, right? We had a great
Yeah.
talk. We will even get into that topic, okay? The extension methods and all. So stay with me. I'll be getting all those topics in an upcoming object-oriented sessions, okay? So dpts dot contains this. If it really contains this, we will say that okay, great. So if it is not null and it also contains, then we got to be be saving this dpt into our object space, right? So I've already told you, like whenever you write this dot, that means you are saving inside your object space. So we have saved id into the object space. We have saved the name into the object space, provided the name is at least one character long, at least two characters long, and save the department into object space if it is contains there. Either you can use this or you can say is okay, right? That's it. So if you have already
Which is
done
good.
this stuff, you can just plug in this is okay variable right inside a if statement. It's up to you, whichever you want. Like both the things are just in front of you. But I prefer to write, contains because this is already a built-in method. I like to comment this for bookkeeping purposes, right? Just for you to view it later. I want to shrink it. Okay, if dpt is not null and dpt contains this, we got to be getting this dpt straight into my this dot dpt, right? So we have already done many things. I assert you that we have really, I confirm you that we have already done many things. Why, you'll just come to know very soon, right? So right now, if I can
Sudipta,
really,
just give me 2 minutes. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
in 2 minutes, okay, sure, I'm
Yes.
here, no problem. Drink some water. All right, you're back. Great. So, what I was telling is that now we need to be initializing the object, and now this initialization is very safe because you have to be putting the right data. Otherwise, there it will not just take, right? The data
Yes.
won't be taken, won't be consumed within the object. So let's have a good information.
You need to definitely specify the data, whatever we have given.
Yes, and then the department IT. All good. Okay. And then the reason then after that we can definitely print the object. We can just print whatever is my id name, and I just want to be having one such display method real quickly, like public void display, that displays the object's information, right? You can quickly do that. I hope if IntelliSense would have helped me in here now. So the id is, I always prefer to write this dot id. The name is this dot name, and the department is this dot department. Great. So that means I can really ensure that the object really has got the right data by calling e dot display, right? And let me run it, and you'll see it working good. You can see it working. Great, it's working. Nothing fancy about it. Okay, so we have still not come to properties, right? So you can just see an object being created with respecting the basic object-oriented principle of encapsulation, and after that we display the object. Great. Now, instead of getting it in the constructor, let's say if you really want to change some value later, you can't do it, right? Once put inside the object, it is done for good. We can't change it later. So as to change them, you need to be providing individualized, individual setting mechanism, right? You need to be setting the ID separately, you need to be setting the name separately, you need to be setting the department separately. Let us quickly do it in no time. Let us just do like public, okay, just a second, public void, and let's say set employee ID, and just have an int ID setting the employee ID. I'm going to be having public void set employee name. Once again, don't let your mind chatter. Our mind always thinks, oh, get set has already come. No, I mean, we are away from that even. Okay, so I'm just writing the set as a function. You can write anything. You can write save. Okay, let's say I don't write set, I write save, right? It's your word. You can write anything. It's not about the set keyword. Okay, but I prefer to write set. Okay, set means you want to save something. So set employee ID, that's the ID you want to save, and string name, okay, oops, name, and the third is public void set department is string dpt. Cool. So all I'll do is that I'll copy paste these pieces of code. Now much of the things will go like copying, pasting, done. Copying, pasting, done, right? You agree with me, right? Because there's nothing big deal over here, here too. Copying, pasting, done. Look at this, right? So copying, pasting. So the things that were done in the constructor, you can also do individual, right? So basically, you understood the mechanism of so in the constructor initialization, you could have had one single function, and where both the set function and constructor can call such
Yes.
common function. You can also have done that. I agree. But for the sake of this explanation, this demo, just want to keep it simple, even if copying pasting what we are doing. So now that we have got the set employee ID, set name, and set department are the three functions. So that means anytime you want to be changing your name, like let's say you want to change, like, okay, you want to be changing your name to your whole name. So that means set employee name to whole of your name. So your name is Ashwarya, and let's say your surname is, did I spell it right? Mandala?
Yes, absolutely.
Right, great. So now it's your whole name, right? So the, after that, you still want to be getting into the IT, set the department. You want to be getting into, let's say, the HR department, let's say, for some reason. Let's say your thing has changed. Now, if you really do those changes, it really, really works. It really works. Now you are Ashwarya Mandala and in the department of HR, but some reason you want to be getting into some, maybe there's a department of like physics, I mean, which is not there in that particular company, but you really wanted to do that. It just won't be taken, and the old IT will be retained because that wasn't taken at all. That wasn't taken at all, right?
Because that
So
is specific.
yes. Now, additionally, what you can do is that you can throw exception, you can do other kind of things. That hey, come on, you have given some wrong data. Please don't give that. So otherwise, I can throw exceptions, right? So throw new exception. I've already taught you these things in previous classes.
Yes.
Okay, throw exception that DPT, whatever value DPT, not allowed, right? Not allowed. Now, if you do that, your encoder has to ascertain two things. First of all, never ever dare to use this set department within a loop, because this throws exception. Okay. See, if something throws exception, you can still call those function, but at least not within a loop. For a single call throwing exception, you won't notice the time. It is very fast. Okay, taking
Okay.
some millisecond or so to throw the exception. But if you are walking in a loop, as I said you, it really causes a lot of time delay. So never use exception codes, the code that calls exception, that raises exception within a loop. So don't ever use it. But now this will be failing. If I try running it, it will fail. First of all, Visual Studio will ping you there that
This
physics
is
is not
not,
allowed.
yes.
And if you really want to continue thereafter, then you'll see the exception in the runtime. If you don't want the Visual Studio to get you along, you can just hit Shift F5. That way you can run it. I'm sorry, Control F5. Control F5. In that way, the Visual Studio won't be getting into. However, in the runtime, you will see the exception. Physics not allowed. Right. So that means you got the point, right? What I mean to say is that
And
exceptions are great. Okay, let us keep this exception alive, not a problem. All right, so this is what is the case. Now the point is that you have set this like this. Now let's say you want to read just the department instead of like reading going for the whole display. You just want to be reading the ID specifically, you want to be reading the name specifically, or reading the department specifically. So what you can do is that you can have a companion function. Apart from these IDs, you can have a companion function which just kinds of returns the current data inside the object. Like, because see, once you have made it private, you can neither set it, or neither you can get it. I mean, you completely have veiled on it. It's completely veiled, like it's completely covered with dark, dark clothes, I call it veiling. So you can't even either read or write on it. It's completely hidden from us. Okay, is completely hidden. So you can't even write or even read. You have to be providing public functions to do that. So here we provide the public companion function to read, to get my employee ID. And they're pretty very basic and simple. We can just write return this dot ID, right? In this way, we got my employee ID returned. Here we have return public string. We are very near to properties. Just give me some moment. Public string employee name. First of all, I have told you that don't ever think that I'm teaching properties. Okay, don't ever think. So all of a sudden, I'll tell you this is property. All right. So now you can see that for a setting function, you also have a getting function. You have provided because like your coder might like to see your employee ID separately, right? So this get employee ID will get your ID separately. The name will get you the name, right, separately. And this department in a very similar tone, we can have public string department. I can say get department, get dpt. The job of these functions are very pretty simple, straightforward. It just kinds of returns the internal data, because the outsiders don't have a way to either write it or even to read it, right? Now writing can always go through some validation check. We can say that they are validation checks. And read no validation check. Reading means you just want to see things, right? You can see anything in this world, whatever is visible. You can see sun, you can see moon, but can you touch sun? Can you touch moon? No, right? So that means like accessing something is not possible, but reading something is mostly possible. If we can look at it, we can see it. That's it, right? So that's the thing basically. Like we want to just read it, and the internal state of the data is returned, right? That means anytime, instead of having this display running explicitly, we can say that, okay, oops, we can just say, we just like to see e dot get my employee ID separately. get the employee name separately. Did I not use it on the name part? ID. Okay, that's the ID. Oh, should have written get. Okay, and the get department. That's right. Okay, and then the get employee name separately. Get name, and this
Okay.
is get salary separately. Sorry, get department separately, right? So I can again write that ID equals to this ID, this name equals to this name,
Department.
and department equals to the department, right? So you have them separately. So you have put these data in a constructor. One or
Mhm.
two values have changed. We have not changed the primary key. Okay, the main information, the key information. Let's say we want to be altering these two after you have done the construction. The constructor was called. It's quite possible to change data afterwards, and then you would like to get your data separately, one after another, instead of calling a display which does all the internal display, right? So let
Yes.
me run it and show you. This absolutely works. There is no doubt in it. Just that in physics will not be allowed, and that causes an exception. All we will do now, we are bound to either use a try catch around it, right? We can wrap this entire code under try catch, which is always good. Okay,
Yes.
so control ks, I have pressed control ks, and now I'm using try. So that means if there is any exception of any kind, we'd really like to see that, then what went wrong, and then we can just write that this went wrong. So
Message.
cw tab x dot message, right?
Message.
Right,
Yes.
got it. So let me run it now. So at least our code doesn't crash. You have a try catch and it says physics not
Yes.
allowed. Oh,
Not now.
so I will like to change it to, let's say, HR. Okay, or if at all. Now if I run it, you'll really see it all good. HR not allowed. Oh, HR not allowed. Why did I don't I have HR? HR, I really have HR.
We have HR actually.
We had HR. Just a second. Why is it saying HR not allowed? Oh, it's because I'm always throwing exception. I missed it and you haven't told me. So we
Yes.
have to be having an else, right? So
Uh,
control KD. Yep. So if this is not so, we got to be getting into an else method. So now if I run it, you'll really see that it says that Ashwarya Mandala and department HR and the ID is 100, right? So hopefully you are getting the point to my point, like
yes.
why we really have them, like ID, name, and department. So they are pretty basics. Now the point I'm just trying to make sense is, now is it possible that we can make something? Just give me 1 second. There's some noise coming. Like, okay, now good. Okay. Okay, that was distracting me. Some external noise. Okay, so now what I want to tell you, Ashwarya, is it possible for us to not to use such a kind of expression, set and get? This makes our code not so readable. Just look at this, set employee name. Okay, the constructor part we understand, but set
Yes.
employee name, set department, why not instead of this we might have something like e dot employee name, employee name. Oops, come on, employee name equals to your name, right, Ashwarya? Right? We can do something like this. I mean, we if we have to do it, if we have to be doing something like that, then this emp name has to be public again, right? Because if we really
Yes.
want to set
We have
something
to
like
get
that, it has to be public. Then if
public.
we make it public, then again the object oriented principles are violated, the encapsulation principle, the data hiding principles are
Yes.
violated.
No.
Now, if I tell you I don't violate anything, but I can still do this, and internally it will be a function. Okay, so internally this will be a function. So if I do ash going into emp name, it will something call out like this. So I will write this. Internally,
Mhm.
this will call like this. I will call e dot department dpt equals to this, this internally is going to call something like this. So external developer will love it. Instead of writing this, I would like to write id equals to just
E
empid.
BID.
I will write this. Internally, it will call a function like get id, right? I am going to be calling something like this, employee name. Okay, and quite internally this is going to be calling like get employee id, same for this. Okay, so because I don't want to write get and then function calls and those, that makes a program much more, much untidy. I don't like it,
Oh,
So, but Java developers don't have any way. Their programming system is built to use functions. So they are all function-based, functional programming languages. So everything is a function, 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 and function. Even the Java language is so. JavaScript is so. But C Sharp said that okay, we will give the end coder some relief, that encoder can just write this, enjoy these beauty, these benefits, just write this. Internally, we will hit this. So let this be an internal talk, right? In Hindi, we say like andar ki baat, right? So this is like something like within us. Like we don't have to worry about it. Internally, we will write that. So externally, we will definitely use things like this. I mean, external means external calls. So e dot emp equals to ash, right? So how do I really do this now? This is possible. I mean,
right.
right now this is not possible. Once again, you
Yes.
might be thinking that Shudip, to kind of change this to like
No,
public.
you said that it has to be private and it has to follow the.
Yes, it has a private. We are not
Uh,
accessing these small variables. Remember, not I.
yes.
When I said ID, when I say MP ID, or when I say MP name, I'm not accessing them. They're still ID name
No.
and DPT. Now to do
Right.
this, we just have to be
Writing.
combining this into such a beautiful syntax that it works. So now how I do it, just look at it. I'm going to be copying this. I'm slowly morphing thing now. So I'm doing it for one. So both of them will occur. Let me tell you, this employee ID, like this guy ID, and let's say we also want to be setting this e dot later like set employee id, right? We haven't done it, but let's say we want to be doing it sometime. Maybe we want to set to 101. Okay, and similarly that will be corresponding to e dot empid equals to 101, right? I'm actually writing side by side both the versions. These are the functional version, these are the properties version, right? Now for this to work, I'm sorry, not the set part, not the set function. For this to work, we need to make sure that we should be providing some kind of functionality where this and this can be bound as this and this. Okay, I mean we want to be we want to be wrapping up our get employee id and set employee id under one roof. Yes, under
Okay.
one roof. So this is exactly this what you see. This is exactly same as you see, but just we want to wrap it within one single structure. That structure is known as property definition. You'll just come to know right now. What we do is we start writing int, because employee id is an integer anyway. We first of all definitely should start writing using public first, okay? And then we will write empid. Look at this. And if I end the semicolon, then the error will go. Then you know that this is a public variable. This is nonsense. I already have a private variable, and why should I have a public variable too? So this is not what
Yes.
we're going to do. Instead, give a curly braces around. Now put both these functions inside. Okay, I have put both the functions inside, right? Now, I don't have to be writing public void anymore. Delete that. Now, this ID variable is by default available as value variable. We even don't have to be defining this. The fun is that I don't have to define for the for the set part. Okay, so so this part is the set part, and there will,
MID is a variable or a function here,
this is
Sudipto?
a function. This is the function. So you
The
have
set,
get
the
is a
set
separate
MID.
function, set is a separate function. So
Yes.
this set is a function, so it is actually two in one function. So properties contain two in one function. So this is a function, this is a function put
Yes, that
under
those two functions, and now MID is a function or a variable.
what,
Yeah,
empid.
EID, yes.
Empid
Yes.
is the header of those two functions. You can think that they are the function managers, right? So empid will be working either for set and get one at a time. We'll just come to know very immediately. So you just think we
Okay.
have a employee ID, which is a property now. You'll just come to know very soon why. Now this property works either with the set part or with the get part. So it's one of the two. It cannot work with both of them together. So it's a kind of a switch between either the set and get. Now you just kindly note that how the morphing, now the real thing is going on. So in the final 5 or 10 minutes, so you can now see that what we have is a definition, a property definition. What it is, very simple. It will either cling with this set or it will cling with this get.
With the get.
Yeah,
Okay.
it clings with set when we are trying to do this kind of thing. Okay, when we are trying to write this, at this part the set part is called. When you uh, try to
Get.
extract the value and wants to get it into console dot write line, or like to save it inside another variable. Okay, that is, you might
In the
want to do
get.
something like this, like int x equals to, let's say, e dot empid, right? If you want to do something like that, aren't you reading this empid into this? So anytime
Yes.
reading is intended, the get part is called, and you don't have to worry, it happens automatically. So this is the property header, right? It has two functions within, set and get. The set part, you don't have to be writing this id anymore. You just have to be writing value, value and value, because the incoming variable's name is by default value. You cannot name anything. The incoming variable is by default value. For example, if I have written this value, how would have looked? Just think about it. Think about it. So I change it to value, right? So
Yes.
now that I have written value explicitly, but here you don't have to write. It is by default value, and even you don't have to define it. It is automatically understood by the type of this property. So if the type of the property is int, the values
Integer.
data type is also int, right? So that
Yes.
means in the set part, the incoming variable values type is reflected here. And for the get part, I don't have to write int anymore. I don't have to write public anymore. I don't have to be giving those functional syntaxes anymore. I don't have to even write employee ID anymore because it was written in the top. And only thing I change is that make it go in small. So that means the get part, whatever it returns, the type of data is being reflected here. So that means this property definition says that this part is the incoming type value for the set part and outgoing types
Okay.
value for the get part. Just required changes. I don't have to be writing employee ID. I just have to be changing to just small set. We are done. Hit Control KD to align everything. We are done with the properties, man. See how easy. So these are two functions. So get function and set function.
And set function.
Yeah,
Okay.
set function is actually set employee ID, and get is the get employee ID. You can keep both these versions, like these are functional versions and this is a property version. Now I'll quickly change these two in no time now. Copy. First of all, I'll do a little change. I'll make it to value. That makes actually, if I do this change, I can easily copy and paste and do the changes. And because ultimately in property syntax, they are recognized as values. Okay. So I've done those changes. Now that I will copy this, watch out for that. Public string. The getter and setter part is string, is employee name. Paste this. Okay. Now just remove everything, just write set. We are done. and remove everything and write get. You are done. Completely aligned. Great. You have your properties now. Now this guy. Okay. So I'll copy the whole thing. Okay. I'll write public string one more time. DPT. I'll paste the whole code. Replace all by
All
set
that set.
and replace all by get.
Get.
We are done. We are done. Finished. We are done. So now you'll see all those bleeding has stopped in your program.
Yes,
Nothing is
yes,
bleeding
yes.
now. I just who want to comment that, okay, just don't want to set it using two ways. So comment how much time it took to, so kind of morphing, you have seen in some animation that a human face was changed into a lion's face, right? Morphing. So I changed from the functional syntax to the property syntax. So right now, I'm not using any functional syntax, it's all properties. So under the hood, this is calling a function like e dot set employee ID. This is really, really true. Let me tell you. You might believe that what Shudipta you are telling that it is calling a function like this, right? And
Yes.
I am absolutely right. It is doing that. So as I have created properties are internally converted into get and
Converted
set
into
functions.
function.
They will be
Uh,
converted to get and set functions in pair function because deep inside .NET framework there is no property. One more time, if you look into the IL in like intermediate language, deassembler and all, you'll never see properties there. So all my gets and sets have been converted to
that's a
functions
function.
like this. So all the gets and sets have been converted to functions like this. I'll prove this point very immediately. So it has been like converted to like set underscore emp name, right? And like ash, all right? Same for that. Set underscore. It has been changed to e dot set underscore dept and id. So we write that, we write it, but deep inside the .NET framework, something else occurs. We have written this, but deep inside .NET framework, do you know what has happened? E dot get, e dot get underscore employee ID. So a function call has happened like this, right? For this EMP name, we might have done like this, but internally something of this nature has really happened, like e dot get
So get
EMP.
function comes whenever we want to read that variable.
Absolutely, Ashwarya,
Okay.
absolutely. So deep inside, we actually have just get, okay? It all starts with a get underscore dpt, right? You want a proof? Let's do one thing. Let's do one thing. If you really think, so that means deep inside, this function is really resident, right, in our code,
Yes.
right? So let's do one
Yes.
thing. Let's do real quick thing. Hi, let me change this function to in small get, and also see right now there is no problem with this, no problem, no conflict. But now let me change it to get underscore. Bang, an error now. An error will come. See, now it is bleeding. It is saying, "Oh man, you took my
Get.
my stuff." So where I will get converted to? So now I'm a sugar coated syntax. You know it. So I need to be converting into something like this, but it's a reserved keyword. You've taken the reserved keyword. I mean reserved. Sorry, the reserved function name. And exactly this is what it says. Look at this. Employee
But we
already reserves a
override the
member
methods.
get underscore
Yes.
emp id with the same parameter types. So
Okay.
it has already reserved it. So please don't use emp id. Change it to something else. That's fine. Otherwise, remove this. Got me,
But
Ashwarya?
actually, we cannot override the method names, right? We have such function. We have such rule as well.
I'm sorry. I just can't get you one more time, please. What?
We can override the function name. No project.
No,
So the
we can't override. Overriding means defining same function with different parameters. You can't just have a same function defined same. So
okay.
the overriding, whatever you thought in your mind,
Yes.
you
Yes.
thought that why can't I can have two functions with the same name,
Yes. Yes.
overriding.
Yes.
But overriding
Yes.
happens, overriding, first of all, what you were thinking that is overloading. when inside the same class you have got two functions, we call it overload. But overriding, yes, overriding means same function name can be created,
Can be
but
used with,
that is
but
when
you need to redefine
inheritance comes
the
in.
name.
Inheritance come, there is no inheritance here. So we are
Yeah.
already in the same class, we are not inheriting anything. If you already had in one class some function name, we can rewrite the same function name. For that, we you have to be having the virtual keyword, you know it. We have to be doing override keyword. So in that sense, you don't have any overriding going on, neither overriding nor overloading. We can't, I mean, we have the same function. How can we have the two function with the same name? Can we have void a defined and again write void a again? Is it possible? C sharp void a again, right? I can have a's. 2a is possible. The very moment I do this, they already started reading. It's saying not possible. Not possible. Already defines a method a with the same parameter type, right? All you can do is that you can create another little parameter and then it will be satisfied. It will say, okay, fine. Now A are two different overloads. You should please take deep care about differentiating between these words, overload, override, right? I've already gone through some lectures. You can
Yes, yes.
revisit them and should practice. The practicing is a very key thing, you know. Practice, practice, and practice. So all you see that, you know, if I just written this, it is saying that, hey, how can I create this function in the runtime? Because it has to be creating this function in the runtime. The compiler has to create that function and it is not able to do. It is saying that employee already reserves a member called get underscore empid with the same parameter type. Had this been something else, let us say that int xxx, then no problem. This is
Then you
gone.
will not find.
This is
Yes.
gone, right? So not allowed. I will get back to what I had this in capital get. And so Microsoft has chosen this syntax like smaller case and then underscore because nobody will actually do this. So they will list interferences, right? List interferences, right? That is why Microsoft has chosen to convert all its gets and sets. So is the set function. Now let's say this says this set function, I change it to
If you
smaller
are
case
going to
set
use
and then underscore
underscore,
set. It will start crying out loud. Look at this.
it deviates. Yes.
Again, it says that employee
Yes.
reserves a member set underscore employee ID with the same parameter type. You know, like nobody gets this deep. Properties, okay, have sets and gets. Set will initialize some data, get will get you the data. That is so simple. That's it. But you should have a proper understanding that the object oriented features, the wrapping up, why functions are there. First of all, respect the functional syntax. And then all of a sudden you know that functions are great, but just that we are human being, we love to write less. See, this is much cleaner, right? Cleaner syntaxes. So properties, in summary, properties helps a cleaner syntax. Properties also respect the sanctity of the object by allowing the validation codes to run in, right? You can say the validation codes to run in always. So in, you see, the validation codes can still run, right? So all the properties in the set function, you can have the validation codes running and also making somebody's life easy. And one more thing, if you have properties, you can let that object to be used by some UI controls. UI controls are something where you know that objects can only be used. Let's say you have a wizard control or let's say a report viewer control. They will only and only work if you have defined properties. If you have defined properties. The question is that if I really have to be having properties, and I really don't want to do my validation checks, what should I do? Is there any shortcut so that I can use properties while also not using, the validations? Because I don't have to be doing validations, but I still want to be using properties. There comes the shorthand property syntax. Like let's say after defining all of these properties, in the end somewhere, okay, I want to be defining a property which is named as, let's say, salary, right? Let's say the salary is now not having any bounds, it can go any wild. So one way is to write the whole definition of property as you have seen, like get set with a private variable. all properties are backed up by a private variable. Just look at this, right? We already know that. Because
Mm.
properties means they are functions ultimately, right? They have to be, how can function set and save some data? You need to be having some private variable. But is there any shortcut that we can employ so that we can have a private variable created automatically under the hood? We can have a get function created under the hood. We can have a set function created under the hood. And of course, there is no validation because validation had to be written explicitly. If I don't want to add validation but still want to create a private variable, a get function, set function, do this. Prop tap tap. This is where it comes. Like, salary. That's it. Finished.
Okay.
When you write this, a whole lot of thing has happened. You have internally, there is a member variable created, a private member variable salary deep inside.
Okay.
Starts with something m underscore something, right? And then it has a get function. You have written this, but internally it has converted to
It has
set
all this
function,
stuff.
get function.
Okay.
So all of them in one line. And developer don't realize the beauty of what is happening inside. So when you write this is a shorthand property syntax. Anytime you want to expand this, anytime you want to write a big property syntax and you really don't want to type set and then write and then do all those things, it takes some time, eats away some time. Then what you can do is that, let's say after a while, after some time, you really want to get it to a full definition. Then you can start creating a private variable, it, private, and then underscore or maybe integer, okay, integer, it, like salary, right? And then you can start writing the same boarding process like int, okay, public int, right? You have to write public and then int, then salary, right? You just got the point now. And then adding get function and then says, yeah, get and set, return this dot salary, and then this set, and then you can just say that this dot salary that takes eats some time, right? We don't have time, right? So that's how we can do. Or instead of doing all of them, what you can do, delete. I'll write prop full tab. Come on, look at this, just created. And now I'll just use the tab in the keyboard. Tab, I'll just name it salary, right? Oops, salary. Tab, now just come here. Now automatically all those variables changed. I'll keep it capital salary and enter. We are done. Propfull instead of prop tab, right? So know these things, know these tweaks. This is a Visual Studio tweak, which can do instantly. It can create properties. Just that I need to be creating the private variable. Let us do one more, like propfull tab. Okay, I like to change it to date time. Maybe I like to know when the employee was born. Enter, then tab again to write the DOB in short, because private variables are short. And then coming here, I'll write DOB in capital. Oops, I did it wrong. I have to be tapping on the tab. Remember, you have to be keeping on tapping the tab and then DOB. And now when you're already done up to this, hit enter to accept everything. Done. Right. So great.
Oh,
Now, later point of time, if you really want to be doing some checks, why not? Later point of time, if you really want to be doing some checks on salary, why not? You can really say, hey, salary need to be, less than, like if the value
we can write
is,
conditions in
yeah,
that.
you can write condition. It has to be greater than at least $10,000, right? Let's say. Then the salary will be set, right? Hit Control KD to align everything. There we go, Ashwarya. I have covered ins and outs on properties. Actually, I took two classes almost. It started with the previous thing, have some doubt clearance, and went to properties, went to this functional definition. We had a good understanding of how the whole underpinnings of object-oriented world works, and coming all up to properties. So, Ashwarya, have you understood?
Yes, yes, Suraj, so it was. There are so many hidden gems.
There are so many.
Hidden gems.
Hidden gems, yes, there are
Yes.
so many hidden gems, right? And most of the YouTube tutorial and all, they don't talk about it because
Yes,
they
yes.
just want to make you
I
work
don't
fast.
think
That's
so.
it.
I don't think so. There's this much of data on properties actually,
Yes,
and it was great.
this much of insightfulness into the properties.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So people say properties get set. You have a private variable, save it there, and get it out. There is another thing known as dependency properties, which I'm not going to get it here, which only works in the context of WPF. So I just want to show you that how dependency. So prop prop dp tab will get you some dependency stuff. Okay, so you don't have to worry about them, right? I don't want to get it here. So there is another thing. So that was it for today's session. I'll tell you, please revisit, re-listen to whatever I had with you today, and we can come back again. So when you want to come again? Today is Tuesday. You want to come day
Um,
after tomorrow?
your Friday?
My
I think
Friday, which is
yes.
my,
My
I mean,
first.
oh, sorry, I mean my, okay, my Friday. Okay, my Friday, your Thursday. Okay, so I'll just text that. Your next session will be on my Friday
Yes.
morning.
Thank. Yes.
Okay, take care, Shreya.
So
Bye-bye.
bye bye.
Bye.